So look, now we're sitting at the 2SM studio, or actually boardroom for now. Can you share with the audience about your new project that you're focusing on? You're working now on a new station. It's your new job. How did you get it?
Well, this is a dream job for me because I've always wanted to do a morning program, a 9 to 12 program. It's one of those programs that I think suit my skill set. It suits what I've trained to do over many, many years, which is talk to people. It's a heavily talkback orientated program, but also a news breaking program, which, you know, tend to be my strengths after many, many years doing that. So I'm thrilled that I was offered the job. It was only when John Laws announced that he was going to retire did management look for alternatives. I got a chance to come in here and be interviewed. I was interviewed 3 times. It was exhaustive. They wanted to ensure that they had the right person for the job, and I was offered the job. And
Congratulations.
I feel very lucky. I feel very fortunate. I feel very honoured to work for such a legendary radio station, and a radio station that right now, under the current management, wants to be a competitive force in Sydney radio, and that's a terrific environment to work in.
And the format will stay the same, or you'll try to tweak it a bit?
Yeah, I've tweaked it already. It's not the format that John Laws had. It's not the format that other morning programs have at other stations, like I used to work at 2GB. I've picked up a little bit of what I've seen work and be successful in those formats and use that. Yep. But I've also put my own flavour on these things, a little bit more editorialising, a little bit more fun at the back end. And it's hard to sort of pigeonhole what I do on this program, but it's very much me.
Yep.
And it plays to my strengths, which has been something that I've always aimed to do if and when I ever got the chance to present and host a program from 9 o'clock.
That's beautiful. And do you think you'll try to target more younger generation rather than John Laws was aiming for the elderly?
Well, traditionally in this country, talkback radio has been not only conservative bent, but it's also been for an older population, average age 65. But there's no reason why in the more modern era we can't encourage younger listeners and younger callers to be part of the program.
Yeah.
And I intend to do that. And that's you can do that by, I guess, thinking like younger people, talking about younger topics, talking about things that interest not only more mature retirees, but talking about things that matter to those who are working. That's important. And I also think in terms of your external publicity, making sure you're using platforms like TikTok, like Twitter, that are followed by a younger audience. And that's I've certainly seen 2SM management spend money with billboarding and various online publicity, and they've got other plans to do so to encourage a younger audience to come to 2SM. And, you know, I welcome that. And we can handle that. We can handle that.
Which personally topics interest you right now to discuss? Anything in particular you like discussing? Politics, environmental issues, or maybe cultural topics?
Well, I think the pushback against woke culture, woke government, woke policy is important to me at the moment, because I think we've gone in the woke direction way too far. It's one thing to support minority groups, but it's another thing to support minority groups to the nth degree at the detriment of the majority of the audience. And I think that's what media has done right around the world. And I think we're going to pull that all back, get rid of the woke, and start dealing with the issues we have, caring for minority groups, doing the right thing by minorities, but at the same time respecting the majority vote.
Yep.
And respecting the majority consensus on key issues. So that's very much in line with what I'm on to at the moment. But in terms of a domestic policy and a domestic issue that I'm keen on, baseload power. We've got to change the whole system of power in this country, because we cannot afford, either as a manufacturer, as an employer of people. We cannot afford to have power prices and have the cost of power the way they're going at the moment. The trajectory is going up and up at a great rate of knots. We've got to work out ways to pull that back. And one of the ways is to have a baseload power replacement for coal and gas, if we are to demonise coal and gas the way we have. So that's another topic. And nuclear is the obvious way, I think, to go. And I cannot understand why the current government doesn't even look at this topic. We should at least have a task force operating now and doing the due diligence on this topic. And the other topic that I'm interested in at the moment is basically looking at the rise of the independent. I think we're going to find at the next federal election, the independents are going to rise to the point at which they rose in 2010, when Julia Gillard ended up being the leader of a minority government. I think we're going to see that replicate in this current upcoming federal election. And so it's important right now, and I'm interested in covering this, making sure that we're keeping our eyes on who these independents are that may rise and have the balance of power. So I'm very interested in who these Teals are, the next Teals to be, to think they're going to be elected, and have a look at the independent sphere, because I just think the main parties are going to find themselves in a minority government.
But do you think media will allow actually to bring up the independent to the eyes of the Australians, or you think there will be some censorship?
Oh, I don't know what other media will do in that regard, but I intend to, explore the independent landscape a lot in the election campaign, because it's so important, given the low vote that will be recorded by both major parties. So whatever the rest of the media does, that's up to them.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned about the price of the power in this country. What do you think about the price of the gas? We're exporting so much liquid natural gas, and then we buy it back. How does it work?
Well, it's ridiculous that we don't have a cap, and there should be a cap. We should be saying, if you have that licence to take that gas out of that part of Northern Territory or WA, that's fine, but 70% has to be sold to the Australian public. We've got to have strong rules for that, because this is our power. And power is everything, especially in a country as big as Australia. We've got to keep the lights on. We've got to keep industry going. You have a premium for power in this country that is unfathomable when you think about our raw materials, including gas. But we're selling more gas to overseas countries who get the benefit of the low prices. We should be able to say, hang on, if you want that licence, this is now how it works. You will sell 70% of it to the Australian consumer.
Yep. What is your view on the government subsidising the industries? Do you think it can tackle the inflation?
Well, I think they're two different. I don't think they're as linked as some people might think. I'm not big on subsidies. I think if something needs a subsidy, it tells me that it's not efficient in the first place. For instance, the car industry. We couldn't go on making cars that cost us $100,000 and sell them for $70,000 to make them competitive with imports. The car industry was never, ever going to work, especially against workforces that are paid so little in Asian countries, where many of the cars are made. So I'm not big on subsidies. I'm not big on, this is why I get so frustrated with the renewable industry. We're still paying massive subsidies to keep renewables, to keep renewable companies alive in this country. This seems ridiculous. If it's not viable to produce power from wind and solar, and some of the largest renewable companies in the world are turning their backs on big projects in Australia, why do we keep, sending good money on the back of bad money to chase ourselves down a rat hole? It just seems to be totally and utterly inefficient, and we should keep away from inefficient industry. I'm not a big one on subsidies.
I don't think we should have kept the automotive industry alive in Victoria?
No, for no reason. Otherwise, you could, why have an industry that costs us almost twice as much to keep alive, which is what it did. Yes, it employed a lot of people, and yes, a lot of people became unemployed. But that's where you've got to have a smart government that sees opportunities in AI, that sees opportunities in technology, that sees opportunities elsewhere, like in nuclear, etc. You've got to have a smart government that says we've got to create jobs while at the same time getting rid of inefficient industries. When we got rid of the car industry, I don't think there was enough going on in our economy to provide those extra opportunities. And that just says that we're not great innovators. And I think at the end of the day, we've got to have a government that leads and wants to be innovative and come up with ways to be more productive if we are to close industries like the car industry.
Yeah. Look, if we just look at Asia in general, the labor cost is there way cheaper. And unfortunately, majority of the businesses trying to outsource so many services. Aren't we going to face a big problem?
Yeah, and we're facing that big problem now. We hardly make anything anymore in this country because of exactly that. But, you know, you've got to be innovative. Like, for instance, at the last budget, they spent $35 million on projects to do with AI. Canada has announced $500 million projects for AI, which I think isn't enough. If that is the next pathway to technology, to workplaces, to manufacturing, AI, which it is, why aren't we getting on the front foot in that regard? Why aren't we providing more research opportunities, technological opportunities, supporting startups that want to use AI to produce stuff? $35 million isn't going to be... 35 million is a drop in the ocean, but that's what we spend as a country on something as new as AI. While you know, manufacturing can be dominated and be what China specialises in, and we therefore can't compete, we can surely do more with AI. We're terrific at technology. We take up technology as consumers more than most countries in the world. We should be ahead of the curve, not behind the curve. But when it comes to AI, we're dead set behind the curve.
Interesting view. What is your view on cashless society? Where we're heading to?
I can't remember the last time I used cash. I honestly cannot remember. I think ever since COVID, I don't remember paying cash for anything. I can't remember one instance.
Yeah, okay. You think the digital currency itself will not create any problems in a society?
Oh, I worry about digital currencies. I worry about the fact that we don't have cash, and yet I'm totally sucked in to the idea of not using cash and using cards, because if we're ever under threat from a greater country or a regional force like a China or whatever, all they need to do is cut off our internet, and we have no money to get anywhere, to do anything, to be self-reliant or anything. We're powerless.
That's one issue, and the other issue is, again, it's a control.
And government can control where our money moves to and where it doesn't move to. I don't trust the government, especially after COVID, as far as I could throw them.
Yeah, of course. Who does? All right, now we covered your interest, that now you're on 2SM, the greatest radio station, which is your dream. What else is happening in your life?
What is happening in my life? Well, I've got a television project that I'm continuing this year, which starts up again in February, called Newsmax Australia. This is an offshoot or a renaming of what I did last year, which was ADH TV, and I had a nighttime television program, so a digital online news and current affairs network, which I really enjoy.
Yeah.
I really enjoy presenting and preparing and breaking different stories. And that will continue soon, after a joint venture was forged between ADH TV and Newsmax America, which is going great guns in the United States at the moment as a strong alternative to the legacy mainstream media. So this is a joint venture. Newsmax Australia will go in hand with Newsmax the United States, and we will have some of their programming. They will have some of ours. We'll have our own program, but we'll operate 24/7. So they're employing producers, employing hosts. It's one of the only media outlets in Australia that's actually employing and not sacking. So it's exciting, and I'm really looking forward to starting that in February. It's a double job for me. I'll be working at one end of the day and then working at the other end on the other job, but I think I can cope, and I'm looking forward to it.
I think it's not second until the AI comes.
Yeah, exactly. And then above that, I've got family, I've got kids, and I've got plenty of commitments outside of work.
Plus, you have an interesting hobby to ride a motorbike.
I'm a motorbike fan. I ride. This is my only set of transport, my two wheels, but I'm happy for that, except on rainy days like today. But yeah, I love my motorbike, and I have people I go rides with on Sundays when I can get away from my kids wanting a piece of me. But I really love my motorbike, and I've got an R9T, which is a BMW custom-made bike, and I enjoy it immensely. Yeah, I'd probably never get rid of this one. I tend to get bikes, fall out of love with them, sell them, and get new ones, but I'll never get rid of this one.
How big is the engine?
1200 cc.
1200, okay.
Yeah,
just enough for you.
Just enough. Well, the bigger the engine, the safer it is. I see it as, because you can get out of situations. Whether you're in a situation with a truck moving from one lane to another, you can use acceleration and velocity to keep safe.
Yeah.
Apart from have fun with as well.
Yeah. Do you go on the track?
No.
Never been.
No, I've done lessons in rider safety on tracks at Eastern Creek, etc., but I've never been racing with my bike on a track. I value my life too much. I'd probably end up over the top of the handlebars.
Okay, let's not do it. Look, you as a journalist, did you travel much overseas and interviewed anyone outside of Australia?
Well, in my previous radio job at 2GB, I interviewed a lot of people, Sylvester Stallone, Billy Crystal, Jane Fonda, Jodie Foster, Hugh Jackman, a lot of other people, Dan Aykroyd, you name it. I've interviewed a hell of a lot of people just on radio, and a lot of other people just spring to mind instantly as well. So I've been really lucky. And overseas, the only overseas, I've really only been to disasters overseas. I've been to Tiananmen Square and the massacre in '89. I went to the San Francisco earthquake in the same year. I've been to drug trials in Asia. I've been to Ireland to do a series of broadcasts for a week. I've been to some various Anzac commemorations at Villers-Bretonneux in France to broadcast from. I've been lucky in terms of overseas overseas assignments, but not to go to Hollywood and interview people. Most of that has been done either face to face here in Australia or on telephone with some of these people. So yeah, but I've done a lot of that, and I've travelled a hell of a lot. I think I worked it out the other night, 50 different cities in the world covering news and current affairs. So I've been really lucky travelling, and I've got to the stage in my life where if I didn't have to travel again, I'd be just as happy.
Which one was your favourite place to visit?
Well, when I went to Villers-Bretonneux and heard the true story about what happened with how the Australians engineered the defeat of the Germans in World War I at that location, I was inspired by it all. The story, the sacrifice, everything. And then I've since learnt that I've had a cousin, a great uncle that fought in that war, but I didn't know when I was there. And so it's a special place to me. I've been there twice now for these commemorations, and that's probably the most inspiring place I've ever been. The greatest fun I've ever experienced was in South Africa on these game drives in Kruger National Park. That to me, in terms of an experience, which I recorded and made into a radio series, that was invigorating to see. Some of the most incredible beasts you could possibly imagine in a jungle setting, in a day, in a week, that in the wild. That was something special. I'll never forget that.
Are you planning to travel anywhere else?
No, not really. I could do a week or two in Italy maybe one day, but I've sort of become very enamoured with my world, my country. what goes on in Australia. It's sort of, I guess, you get to a certain age and you think, I don't need the arduous travel schedule that I used to endure. I don't need that anymore. I've got everything I need here.
Yeah, and your family is very supportive of you joining a new station.
Yeah, exactly. Because 2 years ago I had a mishap at a Christmas party, and I got sacked from radio. I got sacked from television, and so I've been 2 years in somewhat of the wilderness. So to be able to score this job and to keep going with my television interests makes me extraordinarily relieved and happy, and in turn has made my family extraordinarily relieved and happy. You know, and through that time I've reset my own life. In terms of, I don't drink alcohol anymore. I'm not a danger to myself. I'm not a danger to anyone else. I'm just who I've always been, which is good, a much better person. And so, yeah, it's a start of a new era, both in work terms, but also in terms of life.
Look, I'm sure many people can call you a successful person. Funny enough, in your boardroom, you have a painting just over there, and there is a quote: "Success can be measured by the obstacles you overcome." And I think what you overcome in the last few years can make you a very successful person.
Yeah, as arduous as any that I have faced in my life, thinking that I would never be employed again, and thinking that I was, ruined my own reputation after many years, that was the pits. That was at the lowest level I've ever been. And so to work my way back, to be in contention for something like this and to be given this responsibility is, it's quietly a proud achievement to me, yeah.
Did you have people supporting you in the last few years, or actually people turned away from you after the scandals?
Very few turned away from
Yeah.
me. A lot of people knew me a little bit more than what others knew me as. So a lot of people knew that, who I was deep down, who I
Yeah.
was in a workplace. And so they've been hugely supportive. I've had mentors throughout those 2 years. I've had actors that have come to me and said, "I've been through the same thing as you, I want to help you," and have helped me. I've had people in the that I've never met come forward and become regular mentors for me and kept me up and
Yeah.
kept me positive and kept me striving and kept myself from dipping down into some low places. Yeah, I've had, and without all of those supports, without those people to prop me up, I probably wouldn't have ended up here.
Funny enough, you working in the media, and journalists try to portray, or they did portray you as a demon, rather than again trying to be a bit more honest to themselves. How do you look at this situation? You came back now stronger and better, but you're still working the same arena. And again, you have people who try to put you down. What would you say to them?
I don't have any angst towards what some said publicly and very loudly about me. All of those people don't really know me. That I know. And secondly, the commercial broadcasting culture is one of putting down people who mess up and not allowing them to get up.
Yeah.
But that's not the way the public run their life. Everyone in their life has their ups and downs. Their kids have their downs and their mishaps, and they pick their kids up. Their husbands, their wives have their ups and downs, and we pick each other up. I think the public have a greater appreciation for someone who's done something wrong and wants to reset and make something of themselves. I think they have a greater appreciation for that reality, that life reality, than the press do.
Yeah.
The press have to maintain a narrative. We've regarded him as not worth time, as not worth respect. We've got to maintain that narrative. It's simple, it's sad, but that's just the way media works. I understand that.
Don't you think it's cultural?
It's probably cultural too. I haven't thought about it too much. I haven't been dwelling on the negatives too much. I've learnt a long time ago that gets you nowhere. Looking at what you've got is probably far more important. And the people around you that are positive, I don't have that negativity around me. If I know that there's something written about me that's negative, I don't read it. So it's not real to me.
Yeah.
I'd rather focus on the people around me that are understanding me and helping me make a difference, which is what we do.
Very good. Who's your biggest mentor in the last few years?
Probably the Australian actor Tony Bonner. Tony wasn't really known to me, and neither was, well, he was known to me. I wasn't known to him too much, but he followed my downfall two years ago and offered to be there. And we would meet every 3 weeks for coffee. He stopped drinking alcohol 40 years ago because he became a danger to himself and a danger to so many other people, and he had so many falls and incidents. And he understood what I was going through and knew what I needed to get back on track. And he has been an incredible mentor to me, probably the most influential person in my life in the last 2 years. And he's understood the challenges of trying to keep positive, the challenges of trying to pick yourself up, the challenges of going through the negative reaction to what you've done, but also he's understood how important it is to keep positive, keep your goals clear, take and accept what is your lot, and give up grog in an effective, permanent way. He's understood all of that, and he's been by my side constantly. So, yeah, the most influential. Still friends. He rang on the program only last week on the program to welcome me back to the airwaves, yeah.
Just similar topic. In Australia, the suicidal rate of men is very high. We have 1 man a day committing suicide in each state. Roughly 2,500 men committing suicide. What do you think could be the biggest problem?
Well, men in a more modern time are finding that they can't keep up with the expectation. Men cry. Men let themselves down. Men self-sabotage. Men are self-destructive. And the pressure is on a man more than ever to accept, I think, the new world. And the new world is that just like women, they are part of the workforce, yes, but they are very much not like their father's era. They're not going to be waited on like their father was waited on by their mother. They won't experience any of that. They need to stand up for themselves. They need to be strong. But at the same time, I think at the end of the day, we've got to understand as a community how bad this suicidal crisis is. And in my downfall 2 years ago, I went through that in a particular day where I got very, very close to taking my own life. Very, very close. And if it weren't for my daughter who knew what was about to happen, I don't think I'd be here. I'd made that decision. And I've since done work with a men's suicide group called the Man Cave Group. And I'm understanding from meeting so many other men in a similar situation why they find it so difficult to get through modern life, because it's so different to what they grew up with. Accepting the fact that, women need to be part of the workforce as much as they are, to have their independence as much as men do, to accept women as an equal, very important. And some men struggle with that. To understand that they also need to contribute in a household. Why should that kind of hard yakka work be the woman's domain? It can't be anymore. Men have to realise that they've got to lend a hand. And so they're feeling under pressure in this transition. And plus, I think, to a large degree, men don't seek solutions as easily as women do. Women have themselves and other women to talk about problems. Men don't communicate like that. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's cultural. Maybe it's part of their upbringing. Maybe it's their DNA. Maybe it's their chromosomes. I don't know. but men don't communicate their problems as easy as women do to other women. And that in itself can be some of man's greatest downfall.
Do you think there is a way to identify a man which is struggling, or do you think nearly impossible?
No, and I think the whole idea of asking people, are you okay, is a great sentiment. But men who are struggling will answer, yeah, I'm good, thanks. You're never going to know how much they're really struggling because we don't follow it up with, are you really okay? Seriously. That's what we should be asking the second question, because men can put the veil of secrecy down and you never know. They cover it up. They don't want to be seen to be weak.
Do you think if people will start calling you from tomorrow onwards, you will be able to help them? If they'll be calling you with their personal problems?
Yeah, look, I'm no counsellor.
You don't need to be counseled, but you went through so much.
Yeah.
By you sharing your experience, what you went through, you might change someone else's opinion.
I think I could. I think there are a couple of things that stuck with me in what other people did towards me that I would propose to other people who were struggling. Yeah. There are a couple of things that still are with me that I know kept me higher than I could have been and kept me out of the danger. And I would use that if I came across someone on air in that situation or in my life. There are some techniques I'd use, but that doesn't make me a counsellor to deal with that on a professional basis. I do what I could.
But I think a person who went through the experiences is more valuable than just a counsellor. A counsellor is just reading you notes which they learned. Somewhere, somehow, it's not a person who actually understands.
Maybe not. I've met some pretty good professional counsellors in this area as well, so I understand what the value of training can be in that space. It can be effective, but if you've been through it, sometimes, as you say, unless you've been through it, how can you possibly know what to say?
Yeah, okay. Very interesting. All right, what is, Mr. Chris, your purpose in life? I'll ask you a very weird question. What drives you?
What drives me is to do what I do successfully. I think success doesn't have to be perfect. There was a time in my workspace where I always thought everything had to be perfect. But perfection only comes now and then. We're fallible. Our workplaces are fallible. Our families are fallible. So I don't seek perfection anymore. I seek success. So that might be success at home. It might be success with my kids. So I'm pretty focused on helping my kids be successful in their own way, and I'm pretty focused on using both my roles, both on radio and television, to be successful. Not my own success, but a successful broadcast that people will get something out of. That to me is successful for me. And yeah, so far so good in 2025. I just got to keep at it.
Beautiful. Are your kids following the path of the father?
Well, that's interesting. I've got 4 kids. 3 of them would never go anywhere near the media, and I'm glad that they don't go anywhere near the media because it can be rough. It's tough. It's mean. As media operatives, we don't protect each other. We don't have each other's back. It's not like that. It's dog eat dog. And so I wouldn't want my kids to go through what I've been through, not necessarily the falls, but just the day-to-day stuff. It's mean. I've developed a tough exterior to handle the meanest, but I wouldn't want my kids to have to go through that. One child, though, a 9-year-old, my Harry, is very keen to do what I'm doing. And he likes to watch National 9 News at night, and he's very interested in what goes on here and in my domain. So maybe I'd entertain that. But if he decides, between now and then that he might do something else, I'd be very keen for him to do something else.
At what age did you know you'll become a journalist?
Early. I was at school and I knew. I got into oratory and debating and public speaking very early at school. So I was a bit of a yabbermouth at home. And then I was in the debating team in oratory, and I won a couple of Sydney oratory competitions. And I knew then that I'd have to do something. And I was interested in news and current affairs a lot because Dad was. And then I had this ability to communicate. So I thought I'd mix my interest in news and current affairs with the ability to communicate. And that was when I was at school, when I was a teenager. So I was always interested in following that path, yeah.
Will you send Harry to the same program?
I don't know. I wish he'd have an interest in aviation or something.
You think with aviation is so small in this country?
Look, anything but media. Get out of media, Harry. Don't do it, whatever you do.
You know, they outsource so much overseas in aviation.
Yeah, well, maybe he has to go overseas to be in aviation. I don't care. Just pick any industry, but not media. Too hard.
You know, by you saying no, don't go there, I think that's something he'll be pursuing, actually. You don't do any good.
Yeah, that's the problem. If you say no enough times, he might sort of say, "That's it for me. I have to do it." Yeah. Sometimes kids can be contrasuggestible, and that's exactly what he would be.
You know what,
you're
Chris?
right.
I think that's your intention. Deep down.
I don't know.
You know, 3 said no, maybe the 4th one said yes. This will be the legacy.
Yeah, could be.
Mr. Chris, thank you very much for today. I had an amazing time. I'm sure our audience learned a lot about you, and I hope one day we can do another podcast.
Good on you. Thank you, Val. Much appreciated.
Thank you.